Hello and welcome. This is Bree, Stedman, host of Own Your BS, the podcast, where your negative head talk and the bullshit stories you tell yourself become irrelevant, and solution focus creates a path of emotional confidence, clarity, and control. Hello and welcome to Own Your BS, the podcast. This is episode 2, and today we're going to be exploring self-doubt and fear. So a big thank you to the women who have responded and shared with me some of the common stories that they find themselves telling themselves that prevent them from feeling they have emotional control, confidence, and clarity. One such common story is this theme of feeling self-doubt and fear. When I started to explore what self-doubt looks like, and more so what that fear looks like, I started to think about the quality of thinking that we buy into when we feel self-doubt, when we feel fearful. And that also includes feeling worried or anxious or stressed. And what I realised is a lot of our self-doubt comes from this what-if mentality. What if I do X, Y, Z and I fail? What if I do X, Y, Z and I'm laughed at? What if I do X, Y, Z and I'm no good? Now, the problem with what if thinking is it's very much future scenario sabotage focused. So what I mean by that is our focus is often on the worst case scenario. What happens if we do such and such and then I end up looking like a fool? I'm going to feel so unworthy. I'm going to feel not good enough. That's going to just make me doubt myself even more. What if someone asks me a question that I don't know the answer to? Again, I'm going to look so silly. So self-doubt is often created through this future focus of the what if. And that what if is fed by our past experiences, by past failures, by moments from our past history that has led us to feel insecure or out of our depth. So, what do we need to do to turn self-doubt and fear into excitement, self-belief, and motivation and momentum? I'm firstly going to encourage you to start creating a list of what it is that you appreciate about yourself. A lot of the time when we feel self-doubt, we're feeling it because we've forgotten all of the things that we are instinctively and naturally talented at. So start to compile a list of things that you appreciate about yourself. What are those skills that you bring to the table that you do really well? What are those capabilities that you can harness? What are those strengths? What do you enjoy about your life? Because quite often what we enjoy is a reflection of a strength that we have within us. This is often such a tricky and challenging thing for women to do, particularly if you're used to feeling self-doubt, because it can feel wrong to build up a list of things that you appreciate about yourself. It can feel egotistical. But let me ask you a question. If you consistently focus on self-doubt, what does tomorrow look like? What does next week look like when you refuse to look at the strengths that you have and focus more on the insecurities and the self-doubts? Now, the only way that we can change this focus is by compiling a list of evidence that supports what we are good at. So, create a list of things that you can appreciate about yourself. Look into the traits that you enjoy about who you are. Be game to ask some of your close family and friends the traits that they appreciate and love about you, and put it together as a list that you can have on hand for when self-doubt starts to creep in. In my last episode, I talked about evidence and how evidence stacks upon evidence to create a distorted reality. So when you start to compile a list of evidence that features your strengths, your skills, your capabilities, You are compiling a list of evidence to create a new reality, a new version of who you are. Now, the trick to this, of course, is to also be mindful of that bullshit you're telling yourself as you compile this list of strengths. Because that deep inner head talk is going to sabotage the new reality that you're trying to create. This, in essence, is owning your BS. So as you're compiling this list of strengths, such as she's a people person, she's confident, she's a good listener, if you've got negative head talk going on while you're compiling this list, while you're reading through this list, please be mindful of it and let me know what it is so that we can address it down the track. But in order for any of that negative head talk to change, we need to start listening to it, because the truth is this: you feel self-doubt and fear not because of anything other than what you are telling yourself. Self-doubt and fear is not real. It's a perception of reality that you have created based on the evidence that supports self-doubt and fear. That was pretty heavy, wasn't it? So, as you've compiled this list of strengths, I then want you to, or I encourage you to look into your past, into things that you have done where you have achieved success, where you have achieved a sense of pride or a sense of confidence, and start to list down the events in your life that have led you to feel good about yourself. Go all the way back into your history. Those times when you were a little girl and someone praised you, the first time you tied your shoelaces and your mum and dad were saying, "That's a great job, well done." Reflect on that, because that accomplishment is not full of self-doubt. That accomplishment is a sense of pride. At the times when you participated in sporting events and you maybe won a game or you got a shot in that netball game, you want to start compiling a list of evidence to support accomplishment and achievement and confidence and pride. And when you have this list of your traits, your strengths, and past experiences, when self-doubt creeps in, you can then choose to let self-doubt take hold, or you can go and find these lists. You can start reading over them, and you can dull down self-doubt with a list of credible evidence that proves otherwise. So that's just the first tip that I share with you today in episode 2. I've got one other little strategy that I'm going to encourage you to embrace when self-doubt and fear creep up on you. Firstly, compile a list of all of the what-ifs that come to mind when you do feel self-doubt. A lot of the time, self-doubt is triggered because of a particular event or a particular thing that is coming up. So as you feel self-doubt, go deep. What is it that you are what-ifing? What are the excuses? What are the hesitations? What are the fears that are arising from that event that is causing you to feel self-doubt? And write them down. So if you're feeling or saying to yourself things like, "What if I fail?" Write it down. "What if I look like a fool?" Write it down. "What if I don't know enough?" Write it down. Write every excuse, every variation, every future scenario-focused what if on a piece of paper. And as you write them all down, we're then going to flip it. We're going to turn that negative what if into a positive what if. So what if I fail becomes, what if I succeed? What if I look like a fool becomes, what if I look like a champ? What if I don't know enough? What if I do know enough? What if I can teach someone something new? We're going to flip the negative what ifs into a positive what if. So you end up with 2 columns on a piece of paper, almost like the pros and the cons, but this is worst case and best case scenario thinking. And again, by writing this list down, we're actually bringing the conscious mind to play. So we're creating new possibilities, new evidence that your brain can tap back into when self-doubt creeps upon you. When you've compiled this second list, this positive list of what ifs, we're then going to do a little bit of daydreaming, a little bit of visualization. So let's use the example of what if I fail. We've flipped that and created what if I succeed. So close your eyes for a moment and go into that moment where you do succeed. Go into that space and time where that event has finished and you've succeeded. What do you feel in that moment when you recognize that you succeeded? If your what if is, what if I don't know enough? Flip into that moment of, what if I do know enough and I teach someone something new? What does that make you feel when you explore that scenario? What if I'm not good enough? What if I am good enough? What does that feel like when you explore what being good enough feels like to you? The power of your head talk can make or break you. And the key is recognizing the stories that are not serving you, those stories that are breaking you, and doing something constructive with them that enables you to tap into what is already there. And that is self-belief and confidence and acceptance and success. We just sometimes need to dig through the layers of shit. And the only way we can dig through those layers of shit is by recognizing them and then doing something with them. And so today, the actioning to do something with it is to flip it. What if becomes positive? Self-doubt becomes self-belief. Fear becomes excitement. Thank you so much for joining me again today on episode 2 of Own Your BS, the podcast, where we've explored self-doubt and fear. Isn't it funny that sometimes our head talk is not so much a specific sentence, but more of an overriding feeling? What we've learned today is that even if the overall feeling is something that is negative, it still comes back to a story that we are telling ourselves, a story that fuels the emotion. And when we address the story, we can address the emotion. Without the emotion, we then have new possibilities. We have new choices. When you have new opportunities to create something different. I look forward to connecting with you all again on episode 3 of Own Your BS, the podcast, where we're going to explore some more common head stories that get into your way from you living your life in accordance to your emotional control, confidence, and clarity. And like always, if there is some common stories that you keep buying into that you recognize are not serving you, then flip me through an email to Bree at breestedman.com and let me help you to explore it from a different point of view. If you haven't already done so, check out the website ownyourbs.com, where there's some free resources and a copy of my book, Own Your BS, that you might choose to get to help you explore your negative head talk in a more proactive and solution-focused manner. Until next time, take care, enjoy owning your BS, look beyond the initial surface stories of what you keep buying into, and remember, choice and control are in your hands. And the more you choose to do something with those negative stories, the more confidence you are going to tap into. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you real soon.